My guests today are film directors Joe Whalen and Finn Constantine and their BAFTA nominated short film, Marion. Now, Joe's debut film, Gorka, was nominated for a BAFTA for the best short film last year, and Marion marks his second nomination in a row. He is also the recipient of 2 Young Director Awards in Cannes, and Joe has a background in writing for television, commercials, and music videos, and is now focusing on developing his debut feature film. Now, Finn Constantine is a writer, director, and photographer working across film, fashion, and art. He has worked with brands such as Gucci and Adidas and Nike and Bottega Veneta. Now, Vin is the founder of the art magazine Plaster, working across digital, print, and video with the world's leading artists. Now, he's moved into narrative work with his first short, Marion, and is developing also his debut feature film. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome filmmakers Joe Whalen and Finn Constantine and their BAFTA-nominated short film, Marion, to the show. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Well, first off, wow, what a short film. Absolutely loved it. Watched it multiple times. But how and where did the idea of a female bull jumper come to you?
I mean, to be honest with you, I think it arrived with us, to be honest. I mean, the idea we found the idea, I guess. You know, the titular character Marion is a real person, Caroline, and it's a real story, and it's her story. So when we discovered this world and this character, and the unbelievable achievements and amazing story of endurance, we wanted to set about to make a film about her, about this real person.
So, what was Caroline's initial reaction when you pitched her the idea to do a film about her?
Um, I mean, so we turned up. We wrote a script in England based on 2 articles we'd read of Caroline, and we wrote a script and we moved to France, but we didn't know where Caroline lived in France. So we went on a bit of a mission to track her down, which we eventually did. And we ended up turning up to her farm pretty much unannounced with the script translated into French, which was a risk, but it was a risk we were willing to take. And she opened the door and, slightly confused at first, but we said, look, we would love you to read this. And she sat down, she made us a tea, and she read it in front of us. And she said, it's like you guys have been living in my head and you've captured my whole experience. So again, it was sort of a very surreal moment, but also a very comforting one for us that we knew we had done the work. I mean, at that point, we then said, we want you to be the lead in the film, to which she'd never been on a film set or whatever. So she said, you know what, let's do this. And we sort of went on our merry way and made it.
Wow. Even the initial introduction and her reaction, it's almost like it's a short film all by itself without even going into the bull jumping. And I love stories like this, but this is what absolutely impresses me about both of you is that you had the initiative to step out in faith, write this script, put it in French, go to France, try to find out where she lived, and go to her farm unannounced and pitch this. That's what makes filmmakers the best people in the world, because we all know it's an industry in which sometimes every day is a step of faith, and you two literally pulled it off. So when I look at the film, I'm thinking there's got to be some way that they've got to give you a double BAFTA for that.
I mean, look, we as you said, we're English. We didn't know about this sport, so we had to get to grips with this sport to begin with, and then we had to get to grips with her story and how this world works. So then, as you say, you jump on flight to Paris, and you move to Paris, and you try and learn French, and you try and track down the lead of your film. I mean, it was a risk, but one I'm very happy we took.
A very, very great risk indeed. Now, I know that you most likely did a lot of research. So, for a lot of my viewers and the listeners out there, what is the difference between bullfighting that we see in Spain or Mexico versus the French tradition of bull jumping?
there's a huge difference, to be honest with you. And most of all is the violent element of it. I mean, the French bull jumping is non-violent. There's no bloodshed. There's none of the sort of the characters that you associate with bullfighting in terms of the matador, or whatever, everything else that comes along with that. In France, it's more of a dance. It's a ballet. It's much less aggressive, and it's in my eyes, actually, to be honest, it's a very different thing.
Well, now, before you started filming, did you go to the bull ring to watch a lot of the bull jumping just to be very familiar as to what goes on? And then, of course, in your mind, how you were going to capture this on film?
Yeah. We did extensive research of the sort of geography and the choreography of how these bull jumping performances work, because we shot a live bull jumping sequence as the ending of the film, so we really had to get to grips with the length of it, and the sort of run of events. So yeah, extensive work was done, sort of spending time in the region and getting to know the area and the characters involved.
Now, one of the main major themes in this film, which I can understand where Caroline most likely saw your script and said, "Yes, I want to do this." You captured the misogyny and the prejudice perfectly in this film. Why were those two elements so important?
I mean, for us, the film really stemmed from one quote that Caroline said in a regional interview that we managed to find on YouTube, when we're sat in London, and we find this video where she looks into the camera and she says, "I don't just face the bulls, I face the men as well." And that whole quote was the sentiment for the film, and what we wanted the film to capture, and what we wanted to try to subtly and with nuance display. So, I'm glad that those things come across in the correct manner. And for us, that was really important. If we're going to take on this film and try and tell this story, we have to really do it with the utmost sensitivity.
And you did. And the thing that I loved about the balance of this film was that in sports, especially, you could have focused and made the men become the ultimate villains, but you didn't. You gave it just enough to where the viewer understands we still have an issue. Because the one jumper who was criticizing her while she was getting ready, because he didn't know she was in the bathroom stall getting ready. So she's hearing all of this. And of course, I know with Caroline, this wasn't the first time she's ever heard it, and probably deals with this every time she's getting ready to do one of the bull jumping events. But the same jumper ended up helping her. So I was looking at it like, okay, was he just trying to be nice, or was he accepting the fact that she wasn't going anywhere?
Yeah. I mean, we really wanted to play into that ambiguity and the sort of the gray area of how she feels in that bathroom moment. There is a real sense that she's sort of separate from the men. But then with that more intimate moment when he's tying her, you're drawing the audience into the question of, is he being supportive and trying to wish her well, or, is there jealousy in this quite male attitude towards her? So we wanted to create a story that sort of, it danced on that line, and to much is, the real story of Caroline's that she was telling us about, of the way she was made to feel. It's not black and white, and there are sort of nuances in the way she was made to feel uncomfortable at times. So yeah, again, we really wanted to mine for that truth.
But what you also captured, especially when during where he was helping her to tie the band around her waist, even the look in her eye, she wasn't totally convinced that he was accepting. And so when you walk that fine line, you did it just as perfect as a tightrope walker would walk the wire. And that's why this film, from beginning to end, it flowed with such incredible grace. There was no peaking in any areas. It didn't go over the top. It didn't go under. It was literally perfectly aligned as the message you wanted to portray in this film, which is why, again, this film absolutely deserves being nominated for a BAFTA.
Yeah, I think for us, it would have been very easy to create a kind of pastiche or cliche of these male characters and for them to be totally awful and sort of over the top and really kind of aggressive. But at the end, as Joe was saying, we wanted it to feel more like reality, and we wanted the viewer to really feel like they were in Caroline's shoes, and for the characters not to be stereotypical, and for there to be nuance and allow the viewer to make decisions about who's trying to get what from who, and it not just be so cut and dry and clear.
And this is the thing that I absolutely just received and fell in love with Marion, because I have seen over in the last 12 months, I've seen over 150 films. Wow. And there's one element that I absolutely despise in film, and I wish filmmakers would stop doing it. I don't like stereotypes. I don't like someone taking a race and putting them in the same stereotypical type of role, because it's not fair to them, because they don't want to be stereotyped. And you had no stereotype in this film. And that's why this film is so important. And in a way, it's almost a bit of a social impact film in a way, because it allows people to see that there is an area, especially in sport, where equality should reign. Now, here in America, we don't do bullfighting or bull jumping, but there's two sports in which we see women excel in here in a male-dominated sport, and that's usually auto racing or drag racing. And here in America, with multi-million-dollar sponsorships and race teams, especially in drag racing, it's really the most perfect example in America, because we have women that beat the men on a regular basis, but everyone respects one another. They don't say, I got beat by a girl. There's no attitude. I got beat by another driver and she kicked my butt. And that's just the way it is. And it's great to see that. But as you showed, there's still areas of improvement in many other types of sports today. And I can see, if it's anywhere from bullfighting or bull jumping, that is a very strong male-dominated sport. So I have to ask, when you went to the bull ring to do some research and you saw Caroline do her thing, what did the fans think of her?
It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing to see, now. So we joined Caroline, 10 years into her career of being a bull jumper, and her reception now is very different to what it was at the beginning. So now, it was amazing. After we finished filming, there were little girls sort of going up to her and taking photos, and it was this really nice moment that our film was sort of being played out in real life, whereby she was sort of playing the role model for these people in the region. So that was a really beautiful thing to see. But at the beginning of her journey as a bull jumper, it's a different story, and she's sort of, it's a proud moment to see that she's paved her way to become this sort of quite iconic figure in the region. So it was a pleasure.
Well, for Caroline, what was the story that she told you on how she got into bull jumping?
I mean, so she's grown up in the region. So this sport is, I mean, I guess the only thing we can associate with it in England is football, right? We all go to the football every weekend and we support our team and we follow our team, and it's sort of, it's in the diary. And the bull jumping in France, in this region where she's from, is a very similar thing. So she was around it, and grew up with it, and it was circumstance, and I think it was just a situation where, this bull jumping, it started in 1823. So historically it's been male dominated, and it was the man's place to perform it. It was an honor, and it's steeped in history and tradition. And Caroline, was knocking on that door, and able to sort of get it open, and to begin performing.
Well, how many in the locker room were actors and how many were actual bull jumpers?
Two were actors, and the rest were all real. The rest of the majority of the team were real bull jumpers.
I was wondering because I was thinking, I've seen so many short films where the whole cast could be their very first film. So I was kind of wondering, maybe they're all bull jumpers, because which would not surprise me if it was.
Yeah. No.
I mean, most of them were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Now, I know that I looked it up. So Harry Wheeler was the cinematographer, which he also shot your film Gorka.
Yeah.
And I have to ask because I lost count how many times I've watched Marion, and I couldn't find the info. So I'm going to take a guess here. Did you film this in 16 millimeter? Because it looks stunning.
35.
35. I kept looking at the graining, and I'm like, it looks heavier than 35. So I kind of leaned towards the 16. So you shot it in 35.
To be fair, you're not far off. It was 2 perf 35. So it's a smaller 35 negative, which gives you something a little closer to 16 than 4 perf 35. So you're pretty much right, to be honest.
Well, was it Cinescope?
No, it was 2 perf 35 shot on a Penelope 239. So it's straight out the camera, raw format. Yeah.
But I mean, when the film just started, I was like, "Oh, this one's real film," and I love that because there's just something where real film still trumps digital, and I know it's expensive. It's not the cheap way to go. You have to be careful on. Depending on budget, multiple takes.
Everything.
Can't be done. Yeah, everything. So when I figured out that it had to be real film, then I had another thought. And I'm going to let both of you discuss this. What were some of the difficulties filming in the bull ring, and how many cameras did you use for the action sequences?
We had 6 cameras for the action sequence. But what's good to mention is those. So we shot one of those cameras was shooting film, but the other 5 were digital because, of course, we didn't have the budget to have 6 film cameras. That would have been sort of massive feature film scale. So we shot 5 digital in the arena, and then 1 reel that we used to match the footage. So in the grade, what we did is we matched the digital to that film, and then all the stuff in the backstage is shot on 35, so everything was then matched up when we got into the grade. So 6 film cameras would have been lovely, but
I was sitting here thinking, wait a minute, 6 film cameras. I couldn't even imagine the budget for that. and to
6
do
film
that for
cameras.
Film.
Yeah.
No, we did print it all back to film. So once we edited that sequence, it all got printed back to 35.
So that's how you keep the look very, very consistent. Yeah. I love that. Now, as I was watching the action part, There was that really short scene where Marion wanted to step out and face one of the bulls, but then one of the men said something to her, and I thought, well, that was a little misogynistic and prejudiced at that moment. So it's not just the locker room; it happens in the ring.
Yeah, yeah. We want, in the film, that attitude does, it emanates out into the live arena, and we, that part at the end when they say, are you sure? Are you sure? There's sort of a questioning of her sort of both ability and bravery, and that's why at the ending you really get that feeling of defiance when she says, "Yes, I am sure." It's sort of a really special moment for us. That
Well, when I was watching the whole bull jumping thing in the film, and then when she slipped and the bull caught her jacket, I'm like, that is real. Now, how many events did you go? Did you only go to one event to film, or did you go to maybe two events to film sequences?
Just just the
wow,
one. We only, we had one go at it. The performance is half an hour. We had enough money to get the cameras and the team there for one night. So that was it. That was the roll of the dice. That whatever happened on that night was the second half of our film, and that was the whole concept for this film, for it to be as real and as and as lifelike as possible. We wanted it to be the real thing with the real person. So yeah, one night, 30 minutes,
yeah.
dash, dine and dash, essentially.
Well, so how did you coordinate to work with the bull jumpers or who's ever in charge? And how were your camera people placed? Because some of the shots you see a relative close up, then you have the wide shot, then you have the shot facing her, and then you see the shot of the bull. So how were you able to coordinate and choreograph that whole sequence?
Well, that was,
A lot.
yeah, a lot of preparation and sort of deciding on where we put the cameras in the arena. Finn and I were on headsets to all the 6 cameras, so we shot it like a live sports broadcast, really. We were telling people to push in on certain moments and to follow her, track her. So it was really quite in the moment, live and direct. We watched Zidane, which is a film by Douglas Gordon, which basically filmed the football player Zidane on 18 cameras during one football match. A film that went to Cannes. It was very well received, and we sort of used that as our reference of how we turn a live ball jumping moment performance into a piece of cinema that feels like an extension of the film.
Yeah, it was so highly impressive. Now, to think about that, you had 6 cameras, 5 digitals, one film. And when you finally sit down in editing and watch all the footage back, were you stunned on how that you're like, we did it?
We
Yeah, I mean,
were,
I think I think it was more like, oh wow, now we need to find the good bits. Not there, everything is beautiful and it's amazing, but we need to find the story within this. I guess what is that? 6 cameras, 30 minutes, sort of like 5 hours, 4 hours of footage, and really carve out the emotional beats and the story, and find those glances, those glimpses that speak to what the film is about, and those moments of narrative, and extract them. But it was amazing reviewing that stuff, because you just feel like you got it in the can, and now you need to do your best with it.
Well, I hate to say this, but when she slipped and that bull caught her underneath that jacket, what were you two thinking? Like
it
either
was,
great shot or I hope she
I mean,
lives?
it was a little bit
I
of
hope
both, to
she's
be honest with you.
okay. I hope she's
Yeah,
okay, really, was the overriding feeling.
yeah, yeah. I
And
mean, it's instinctual, and in the film, it's on slow motion and it lasts quite a long time. But in real life, it's a snapshot, and your immediate reaction is, "Oh God, I hope she's okay." And then once she gets up, and the dust settles and she's clearly fine and you've checked that she's fine and everything is okay, then you kind of revert back and you're like, wow, that's an amazing thing to have captured.
Well, the crowd went wild.
Yeah.
Because
Big
even
time.
your shots, you were able to capture the reaction of the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was interesting when it happened. There was this, in the film, you feel it like that hushed sort of people in disbelief. And then when she sort of starts to go again, when she goes again, there's this amazing uplift of energy and crescendo of sort of like positivity. So that, we were just mirroring what really happened in real life. Like it was such a crazy moment to witness.
Well, so how long did it take you to shoot the film, and how long was the editing process?
We shot over 2 days. The first half of the film is 2 days, 2 days shoot, that backstage. And then the performance was, 30 minutes of shooting, but a day and a half of prep and wrapping. And then the edit was, 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. We started in Paris because of obviously we were working with a French editor because of the language. Obviously the film's in French, and myself and Joe, we're English. Joe speaks very good French, but we needed a French editor to really kind of sit with us and go through all the takes and go through the cadence and the voice and the shot selection. So we did 10 days in Paris, and then we came back to the UK and finished the film in London once we had a structure down and we knew what we were working with.
Now, did you go by a particular color palette for the finished look?
I wouldn't say there was a sort of specific, it was more, we really wanted to keep it sort of honest to the space that we shot in. We had such a great location in that arena on the inside, with the walls and the changing room. So really it was just about, really leaning into the texture. It's a sport which is full of tradition, it's hundreds of years old. So our visual approach was to sort of mirror that, especially with the grain, and film gives you that feel. But in terms of the palette, it wasn't about making it too poppy. It was very important for us to sort of keep it quite realistic, but give it that sort of, it's definitely it's drama.
Yeah, because
with that said,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just to say, with that said, in the first half of the film definitely has a much more sort of blue hue to it, and that was to speak to the isolation and the sort of like the coldness of the environment that she was in. So that bathroom scene, the light is definitely on the colder side of things than warmer. Then once you step out and you're under the floodlights and you have the sand, it gets pushed into a much more warm, slightly green color palette, and it was important to have those two, that separation between both sides of the film.
Yeah, I noticed that, but one of and I noticed the changes on both those scenes, but one of the things I absolutely loved is the use, especially in the changing room. I love the use of shadow and just enough light, because like you said, that's the intimate area. That's where they're getting ready, not just getting ready physically, they're getting ready mentally, they're getting their outfits ready. So the shadowing, the minimal use of lighting in that setting was so beautiful to see, but it also brought the audience into that very intimate setting, and we're focused on Marion. We're focused on some of the other characters that come forth to tell the story, and it just worked. So kudos to both of you for pulling off a absolute beautiful piece of stunning, visual art is what I call it.
Amazing. Thank you. That's very kind.
Well, let me ask you this, and maybe you can tell me something, because I was so impressed by the bull jumpers' costumes because they're so very elaborate. Do you have any idea of what one of those jackets may cost? And do these bull jumpers make a decent amount of money? Or is this a living, or is this kind of a part-time thing that they do?
I could see it for you. I think maybe this is your,
Yeah.
leave the interviewing behind, move to the southwest of France. They've got a bolero with your name on it.
I love that. I love that. But I was so impressed. It's, to me, when you see something elaborate like that, it's a little bit of, it's a little bit of Elvis, but you know, you've got to have that because I know that Spain and Mexico and France,
Mm.
those things are extremely important. And I think for the bull jumpers themselves, it elevates their stature, elevates them as, hey, we are the ones you came to see and to watch and to be
Yeah.
entertained by. So I've always been curious on some of those on things like that. But did Caroline ever
Leave it with
mention it
us.
to you?
We'll find you one. I can find you one. Send me
Well,
your address after.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Well, let me. Okay, so now this film, and especially for you, Joe, this is your second BAFTA nomination in a row. And Finn, I assume this is your first BAFTA nomination. First of all, how does that feel? And what has been the audience's reaction to the film?
Well, it's just surreal, really, to be going back there uh, for the second year. I mean, it's even more special to do it with Finn, you know, to be able to share this moment. And yeah, I mean, in terms of the audience, the response has been so great. Like, you know, it's really like evolved this film, and you know, you become very attached to it personally, but when it starts to go out into the world and connect with different audiences, that's when you really feel the sort of power of cinema and the story we've told. So yeah, it's just amazing to see the journey of this film and to culminate at the BAFTAs. I mean, it's an honor.
A big. And what about
Yeah.
you, Finn?
I mean, I would second everything that Joe just said. I mean, for me, being my first film, having worked in slightly different industries, adjacent industries for quite a long time, and being able to make a film with your best friend and for it to be half good, let alone for people to react to it, is a pleasure, and makes you feel very proud. And then the BAFTAs is a British institution. I've grown up watching it every year on the Sunday night, usually from my sofa. And this year we'll be sat on a, velvet seat, and it will feel pretty cool. So, yeah, we're proud and we're happy, and everything just feels like a blessing. The film has been a 3-year journey, and for us to be able to do it as best friends and as brothers, really, it's a very special feeling.
I love that. Now, are both of you going to arrive at the BAFTAs with regular tuxedos, or are you going to go with the bull jumping jacket and a bow tie?
That's to be decided. Who knows? We're open to anything.
Hey,
Yeah.
If
I
you
say,
come with us, we'll wear the boleros.
I think that will work. And, I say go, since you're part of the fashion world, I say go all out. I mean, walk that
Yeah.
red carpet and make sure that that you're the only ones that they notice.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's very good advice.
Well, I absolutely love it. No, right now, okay, I know that, we have this, we have double awards ceremonies going on within a month of each other. We have the BAFTAs, we have the Oscars. For everyone out there, can they see Marion anywhere at the moment?
Not
Uh,
quite yet,
yeah,
to be
not
honest.
yeah,
The film will end up being released in America, but it just hasn't been. It's coming. We'll figure it out.
Hey,
yeah.
well, once you know, let me know, and then that way we can shout it from the rooftops because I want everyone to have the opportunity to see Marion. And ladies and gentlemen, Marion is an impactful short film. It's set against the backdrop of the Course Landaise, the French tradition of bull jumping. Now, the story follows Marion, played by the real life bull jumper and the only female bull jumper in France, Caroline Noguès-Larbère, which I hope I pronounced her last name correctly. But
Yeah.
Marion is a mother as she prepares for her grand performance in a live arena, battling against misogyny and prejudice while also juggling motherhood in the pursuit of her passion. This short film absolutely deserves to be nominated for a BAFTA, which it is, and let me tell you this, it is a very strong contender. The story of Marion is powerfully compelling. The cinematography adds to the emotion and highlights the depth of the tension between Marion and some of the other jumpers. Your eyes are focused on her story. And when she enters the bull ring, you are focused on her every move. This is what film is all about, bringing the audience into the life of the character. And the good thing is we, as the audience, well, we stay safe in the theater and let the jumpers do their thing. Well, Joe and Finn, I want to thank you so much for sharing your BAFTA and award-winning film with me today, and much success to you at the award show.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you. It's been
Pleasure
a
to talk to you.
You're very, very welcome. And well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for watching. And as for me, you'll either see me at the movies or from the red carpet.